The Tennessee Titans are putting on the pads for week 2 of training camp, and I need to see more out of Cam Ward. He's not the only one, though. I'll tell you who I got my eye on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. It's time. The pads are coming on at Tennessee Titans training camp. I'm going to talk about who I have my eye on the most. I'm going to talk about what I want to see from Cam Ward. We're going to talk about the trenches, of course, as well. And I'm going to finish out today's episode doing my winners and losers, my tighten up and tighten down of week 1 of training camp. And we got to talk about a disappointing start for Xavier Restrepo. Before we get into all of that, though, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. Tennessee Titans have practice on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'm going to be here to break it all down. Plus, joint practices with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right around the corner. You want to stay up to date. You want to stay informed. You want to stay entertained. You're going to get it all here on the Locked On Titans podcast, and that's before the season even begins. But with that being said, we got to talk about the pads coming on. This is my favorite time of the year. I was born and bred in the sport of football, and hearing those pads, getting it going when the physicality really ratchets up in the heat of the summer, this is what football is truly all about. And look, we're going to talk about the trenches, the run game, the defensive line, the linebackers, all of that. But we all know that at the top of everyone's minds is Cam Ward. And I think Cam Ward needs to show more in week 2 than what he showed in week 1. And now I know when I say that, everyone is so attached right now and so ready for the ride. And trust me, I am too. But at the end of the day, he's a rookie. He was in week 1. So when I say I need to see more out of Cam Ward in week 2, it isn't a criticism of week 1. It's about the natural progression of a rookie quarterback getting ready to go for week 1. He should show more in week 2 than week 1 of training camp. He should elevate his game as the intensity of practice elevates naturally with the addition of pads and the physicality involved. This is real football. So, of course, I want to see Cam Ward take it to another level, and specifically the timing. All right, when the pads aren't on, you're a little late on a throw, your guy jumps up, he catches it. We saw that highlight of Treylon Burks catching a football that the Titans put out where he caught the ball over the middle, and Mike Brown and another safety were right there ready to light him up. And look, we don't need head-hunting shots on your teammates during practice, but the addition of pads and guys fighting for their careers, that's going to be a hit when we're talking about camp. You know, when we're talking about the pads on in training camp, not when the pads aren't on. So it just totally changes whether these passes that are a little late, that are a little behind, you know, it totally changes how you'll be penalized for continuing to make those throws or making those mistakes. And Cam Ward talked about the timing of things. Brian Callahan has talked about the timing of things and how important it is for them to be on the right page. Brian Callahan said in a press conference earlier this week, quote, "The feet are really everything when it comes to your timing in the offense. Everything is tied to it. Is it a 3-step drop? Is it a 5-step drop? Is it under center play action, 7-step drop? Are you taking 1 hitch, 2 hitches? What is the route depth? What are the receiver steps?" All of that stuff works together. And Cam Ward even talked about it as well and said that that's going to be everything. He said, quote, "Everything revolves around my timing, in my opinion. No matter what the coverage is defensively, timing of the ball and placement will always beat anything." And Brian Callahan has a timing-based, rhythm-based offense. Timing is paramount for this offense because the receivers are at certain spaces and certain crevices, and the defense are going to open up based on, hey, if this wide receiver is coming on a slant route and he's at the right depth at the right time, it's going to pull the linebacker this way, and then the dig route from the other side or the seam route going up the seam behind the linebacker is now going to have enough space to hit, and it's all on timing based on when the quarterback hits the back foot. You know, all of that stuff matters. So when the pads are on, you're going to be penalized more for some of the things that we have seen from Cam Ward throughout the first work of training camp. You know, a little bit of inaccuracy, has a tendency to be a little behind. He can overthrow guys a little bit where they are jumping up and taking a shot. Those are all things that were on his tape. Now, you would think Cam Ward is a rookie. He's in his first couple of weeks. I'm not saying that that stuff is going to be like detrimental to his career and he can't, but it goes back to the gunslinger point that I made on yesterday's show as well, that I don't think Cam Ward is ever going to be Tom Brady ball placement kind of guy. He's a gunslinger. He's going to let it rip. He's going to throw it in there. You build an offense around that. Cam Ward is an A+ across the board in every trait for a quarterback. He's not a 99 overall in every category, if you're honest with yourself at all. So what are the things that Cam Ward's going to need support with? And then what are the things he does well, and how do you accentuate those? That's the conversation here. So if Cam Ward can be better with the timing, can improve there and be more on time and right in the right spot, not as far, if he can just speed up his clock a little bit, that's going to be tremendous for him going forward to week one. That's what we need to see. So I do need to see a little bit more from Cam Ward. And that's just natural. It's not a criticism. The connotation of it shouldn't be negative. It's just, he's a rookie. Last week, the defense won every practice that we've seen so far. If you had to pick a winner for each practice, it's either even at best, like practice one where it was mid, even at best, or the defense has won the day. I want to see the offense win a day. I want to see Cam Ward dominate a period. I want to see more positive signs like we saw Saturday's practice, Saturday during the day. I said Saturday night once, and everyone lost their minds. But we need to see more of those highlight plays more consistently, or we need to see some of the plays that just haven't quite been there yet be a little bit more consistent and start to be there more rhythmatically. So I want to see more from Cam Ward, but with that, we got to see more from the rookie weapons as well. The physicality, the level of intensity from college football to the NFL is something that's been talked about for decades and decades and decades. All right? Well, when you're a rookie wide receiver like Io Manor or you're Chim DK, and you've done a pretty good job to this point throughout the all-season program and into the first week of training camp, you know what you're doing. Mentally, you understand what your job is. You're checking those boxes. Will that physicality we saw from Io Manor in college show up on the NFL field against these cornerbacks that are going to be in their face fighting for their lives too? Can Chim DK, a guy who didn't deal with a ton of press coverage because he played a lot in the slot at Florida, ran a lot of vertical routes, is he going to be able to deal with physicality when he runs shorter routes, a curl route, an out route, a quick 5-yard slant? It's a little bit different than running a deep crosser over and over and over again at Florida. Can he deal with the physicality on those shorter routes? Xavier Restrepo is obviously a smaller guy without great speed. Is he going to be able to handle it? And then Gunnar Helm is a tight end. Not only is he going to be asked to deal with physicality during routes and use that contested catch ability that showed up massively on his college tape that has all of us drooling about what he can do in hand-fighting situations, is he going to be able to have that physicality level and win those physical matchups in the receiving game, but then in the blocking game? Is Gunnar Helm going to be an improvement in the blocking game over a Josh Wiley, over a Chigakonkwo? That's a huge question. And speaking of blocking, the pads come on. It's in my blood. It's time to talk the trenches, baby. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, we've all been there. You're logging on early. You're waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that is where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as you get closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. I love Game Time, and I'm serious. I've bought all kinds of tickets on Game Time because they have the best features in the industry. You get a panoramic view from your seat on the app so you know what you're going to be looking at. You can turn on all-in pricing so that there's no hidden fees and the price you see is what you pay, and you got the Game Time guarantee. to make sure that you always get the best. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We are looking forward to the Titans putting the pads on Tuesday and on Wednesday's practice. I'm going to be here after practice to break those down, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll have the show out for you to break down everything you need to know, anything that you missed, all the biggest news, all the biggest moments. Make sure that you don't miss it. Get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But continuing to look at what I have my eye on as the pads come on. We talk Cam Ward, the weapons, want to get into the trenches. I'm going to do my week one tighten up, tighten down, winners and losers at the end of today's show. Make sure that you don't miss that. Stay locked in here with the Locked On Titans podcast. But the offensive line, maybe the biggest question for the Tennessee Titans, the expectation, as I said a couple weeks ago, the expectation for the Tennessee Titans offensive line should be that it is better this year. It should not only be better than terrible, which it's been for years, but it should be good. The Titans offensive line should be league average at best. Look, you have 2 first-round picks in Latham and Skoronski. You have 2 big-time contracts in Cushenberry and Dan Moore. Dan Moore better be good for what the Titans paid him and solve that left tackle issue. Lloyd Cushenberry, will he be back in time from the injury? Does remain to be seen. We will see. But I've heard some positive talks. A couple of weeks for Lloyd Cushenberry. You hear it here and there. I don't know if I believe that. But maybe in a couple of weeks during the preseason time, he's able to come back to practice and maybe get ramped up and ready to go for week one. I still would set the expectation low with an Achilles for an offensive lineman. But the point is, even if Corey Levin is out there, Zeitler got $9 million, has been a great guard in the NFL and is a key veteran. So the expectation should be for this offensive line to be better. Well, we know I am not going to be fooled. I refuse to be fooled. I've been fooled before by this pass rush, beaten up on bad offensive lines. I'm sorry, but I refuse to believe that because the pass rush has done great in the first week of camp without pads on, that the pass rush is good. I expect a swing in the other way. And I will tell you, I know that people are going to spin it as, hey, maybe the Titans pass rush is better than we think. All right. I can already hear it a week from now. But if the Titans pass rush beats up on this Titans offensive line with the pads on, and we're about 10 days from right now, and the defensive line is dominated like we heard last year and the year before, I'm going to be like, oh no. This offensive line should kick some tail at times too. They should not just take a beating. I know that Simmons and Sweat are good, and we'll talk about these guys. But look at the edge rush. Femi is a developmental project. He's going to be physical and come off the ball, but Femi shouldn't be working over $22 million Dan Moore. Femi shouldn't be working over first-round, 7th overall J.C. Latham, whose body's transform and all that. And Peter Skoronski should be a Pro Bowl, hopefully to all-pro level guard. He should have his wins. So this should not be domination by the defensive line. I expect the offensive line to stand up. I'm not going to give them some this Titans defensive line is going to be awesome. What? We know that this is one of the worst edge groups in the NFL. The odds of the Titans defensive line just totally flipping the narrative. It would require Femi to go absolutely insane. Tavondre Sweat to become Vita Vea. That's what it would take, and I'm here for it. But I'm just not going, if I have to choose whether, oh no, the Titans offensive line is not as good as we thought, or wow, the Titans defensive line has flipped the narrative and there's monster leaps happening. I'm sorry. I'm going to go with the Titans offensive line probably is nowhere near as good as we need it to be, and it should be. So I think the offensive line should come out and make an impact right away in pads, in my opinion. No doubt about that. But on the other side of the ball, in the trenches. I need more from T'Vondre Sweat. Haven't heard a ton about Sweat so far. I remember, I keep bringing it up because I found it very interesting. Jim Wyatt had a mailbag where he said T'Vondre Sweat's look just okay. For the team writer to, be honest like that, I think, he's just been okay. I believe it. I need better than okay from T'Vondre Sweat. First week, he should be in great shape. Nobody bothers him anymore about the conditioning. He's going to be in condition. He proved it last year, and he did. But he needs to take a step up. It can't just be as good as last year. And Brian Callahan has said the same thing. They need T'Vondre to start sealing some of those sacks, getting even more pressures, more consistently impactful. He was the number 38 pick. This should be an impact big-time player. So with the pads on, T'Vondre Sweat should start to wreck shop. So I want to see some more. And again, I want to see both Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham, and if they're going to move Jeffrey Simmons around, I want to see it all. And then we talk about Femi. Femi is a guy who, I'm very, very high on, very, very excited about. And he is apparently doing very well because Brian Callahan said on Saturday, I think it was, quote, he plays very physical and with a lot of enthusiasm. The technique is coming along, and he's learning every day. He's probably a bit ahead of the curve in terms of where I expected him to be at. We already heard reports that he's getting first-team reps already and first-team snaps, which makes sense. I talked about how I thought that Lorenzo Carter would be the early down starting edge, and he retired. So Femi is the guy who I said would probably take his spot throughout the season because Femi is the other big physical edge that can match Lorenzo Carter's size and style. Well, now Lorenzo Carter is gone, so they need Femi to step up in that role. He needed to jump into that role anyway. But now, with the pads on, a guy built like a Greek god like Femi Oladipo, he shows his explosiveness during practice. You can see the size, the speed, all of it. The pads are on, unleash it. Really go at it. Go after it. They need him. Again, if the Titans are going to make the playoffs this year, it's because Femi blew up into a 8 to 11 sack player. Because they need somebody to replace that production from Harold Landry, but be better and younger and cheaper. You know what I mean? So that's what they need. And him being ahead of curve, great sign, but now we're putting on the pads. Staying at linebacker, James Williams. James Williams, my pick to win the linebacker spot next to Cody Barton, had the interception against Cam Ward that we talked about, and Brian Callahan said this about James Williams recently, quote, he's done a really nice job. He's matured from his first year to his second. He's starting to understand at the linebacker position with your eyes and your reads and how quickly you have to diagnose and react. Those things have improved leaps and bounds from his first year to his second year. Combine that with the mental improvement with his maturity, and he puts himself in a really nice position. Not only do I think that James Williams is winning and the favorite to win that spot next to Cody Barton right now, I think he's running away with it currently. That's my opinion. So James Williams with the pads on, keep it up. Because diagnosing the run, fitting the run correctly, that's something that he really needed to improve at so that he can play faster and use his physicality so he's thinking less and just playing more. You get more comfortable. The game slows down. That's the type of thing you're talking about. If it slows down for James Williams with the physical gifts, remember, he was a 5-star recruit out of high school going to Miami, played safety. He probably should have went to linebacker earlier. This is a guy with tremendous natural ability. So if the game slows down for him and he can maximize that physical ability, the Titans couldn't just have the answer to, be that guy next to Cody Barton. The Titans could have their next linebacker of the future to take over for Cody Barton eventually. That's the kind of talent James Williams has if he can harness it. And putting the pads on, seeing how much it's really translated as it looks like it has, that's something that I want to see. And of course, on the outsides, on defense, all of these young cornerbacks and the young defensive backs, even like a Kevin Winston, big challenge dealing with the physicality at the NFL level on the outside. Got my eye on all that. But now, as we looked at what I want to see, I do want to take one step back and say, who were the winners and losers, tighten up and tighten downs, of week 1 of Tennessee Titans training camp? And a fan favorite wide receiver is in my tighten down list. Today's episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and maybe a couple of listeners could be playing in a Locked On Titans Yahoo Fantasy League, and you could be in it, and even if not, you should play on Yahoo Fantasy, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy has been around forever. They have created an incredibly smooth draft day experience, which is absolutely key. Easy setup, a great mobile app, and to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. And it all begins on August the 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We've talked about what I want to see with the pads on for the Titans, talked about Cam, the weapons, some of the trench play stuff that I'm interested in. Now I want to talk kind of in review of the first week of training camp. Before we move to the second week, the pads come on, let's just take a moment and look at tighten ups and tighten downs from the very first week. And we'll start with my tighten ups. And the number one tighten up for me is Femi Oladejo. We talked earlier about the quotes from Brian Callahan about how Femi Oladejo is ahead of the curve. Love to hear that. He's made plays. He's made an impact. I've seen his name every single day in all the reports. You got to give love to Femi Oladejo as a tighten up here. I think Bryce Oliver deserves to be a tighten up. I said it on an earlier episode this week, but he's working his way up to wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 opportunities if some of the rookies don't necessarily take the step up. Like, he's earned them at this point. And with his emphasis on special teams and playing gunner on coverage, and, I think that Bryce Oliver is a huge winner of week 1 for the Tennessee Titans. Also, I said it earlier, James Williams. I talked about James Williams, why he's a big winner. So we all know that. But I got to talk about Cody Barton, too. Cody Barton is a massive winner. Cody Barton is looking like a guy. And we need to see the pads come on. But such great instincts. So much better in coverage than what the Titans had last year. The leadership stuff looks off the charts from what we've seen early. I think he's going to be voted a captain on the team. I think Cody Barton is a huge addition, not only to the field, but to the locker room. And he has been a big winner of week 1. It's obvious the impact that he's having, and he's all over the place. Kevin Winston, another rookie defender who I think is a big-time winner. He's made an impact on basically every day. He's made a play that makes you go, oh, wow. Saturday in the big moment at Nissan, he gets a great pass breakup, which got posted by the Titans online. He's in the backfield for a potential tackle for loss opportunity if pads were on. Like, Kevin Winston being... When Kevin Winston was drafted and he's coming off the ACL tear, the expectation is, okay, he's going to come along slowly. Kevin Winston doesn't look like he needs to come along slowly. Kevin Winston looks like he just was drafted without injury. Right now, Kevin Winston, the way he's participated so far, it's like he wasn't injured when he got drafted. And if Kevin Winston wasn't injured and was literally just going to start training camp like normal, like everybody else, if teams knew that for certain, there's no way Kevin Winston would have dropped to 80. There's no way. So what a steal this could end up being for the Titans. Kevin Winston has been a Titan up from week 1. I think kind of have no choice but to give Van Jefferson a tighten up from week one. He just continues to prove his consistency, his versatility. I think he's going to be a guy who, he may not have the talent to be a top-tier wide receiver, but he's just going to be the new Nick Westbrook-Akine. And I think he can be a more talented and faster version of Nick Westbrook-Akine, but I think he's going to be used in that role as the do-it-all, kind of like a utility man for an infield. You know, he may not be the starting level talent, but he's just going to be out there a ton because he could just do everything, be versatile, and checks a lot of boxes for the Titans. So I think that's critical, but I think Jarvis Brownlee Jr. definitely deserves a tighten up as well. He has made pass breakups in every single practice. Seems like he's breaking up big opportunities, and part of the reason that the defense has won most of these days is because the defensive backfield, like him and Amani Hooker, are actually making pass breakups, and they're all over it. You know what I mean? So you got to give credit where credit is due to somebody in that secondary, and I want to make sure that Jarvis Brownlee Jr. gets his tighten up. Probably need to give one to Amani Hooker as well, but we do need to do some tighten downs, and this may be controversial, and I know that people are going to have a level of cope, but the reality is Xavier Restrepo is a tighten down. Haven't really heard much about him. He hasn't really made an impact in the first couple of days of practice. Nowhere near the impact that he had on certain days of mandatory minicamp or some of the offseason program stuff. He's kind of been a ghost, quite honestly. Haven't really heard much about him other than that he's getting opportunities to punt return. And then to double down on it, at that practice on Saturday, he's got a thigh wrapped. He's got the other leg wrapped. So it looks like he might be dealing with multiple lower body things. And, you know, we're all excited about Xavier Restrepo. He's got the chemistry with Cam. He's got the story, all of that. But at the end of the day, he is an undrafted free agent. And if he's injured and unable to be at max capacity and unable to get all the opportunities and reps that he needs to prove himself, well, it may be difficult because you look at the three veteran players of Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, and Van Jefferson. You look at the two rookies with Alec Iomanor and Chim Dike, who were higher draft picks than him. And then, if the Titans keep 6, you're looking at Bryce Oliver, who's certainly ahead of Xavier Restrepo right now. So now you're asking, if you're Xavier Restrepo and you're unable to beat out Bryce Oliver, now you're asking the Titans to keep 7 wide receivers, which isn't as certain. So he could turn it around. There's a lot of time left. It's not like he's going to get cut anytime soon. I don't believe, at least, that he would be cut before the 53-man roster cutdowns. He's going to get max opportunity throughout, but he's got to be available to take that opportunity. He's got to be healthy enough to take that opportunity. So you can't really say anything other than Xavier Restrepo is a tighten down from week 1. I think Josh Wiley is a tighten down from week 1 as well. Gunnar Helm and Chikakonkwo are clearly ahead of him in the pecking order, and I think a guy like Thomas Odukoye got some first-team snaps as a blocking tight end. David Martin Robinson, probably a more athletic and explosive guy catching the ball. Josh Wiley could get passed by both those guys. Josh Wiley, I think, is a guy who could potentially be cut during training camp, not literally until the 53-man. He might be cut, and they might bring somebody else in there eventually. Like, I think that's how far on the outskirts Josh Wiley is right now. I think a natural tighten down for Cedric Gray and Otis Reese, because they're, I think, falling behind to James Williams, and then a major tighten down to Jaquan Jackson. We saw Colton Dow get cut and waived, and the Titans bring on new guys. I think if the Titans cut a wide receiver soon, TJ Sheffield obviously is an undrafted free agent rookie from this year, could be that option, but I think Jaquan Jackson would actually be that next guy to get cut. He is on the chopping block in a major way, and I don't think there's any logical hope that Jaquan Jackson makes this roster. And if that's the case, and I'm saying that right now, then why not churn him and bring on somebody who might be able to do a little bit better? James Prochet has probably cooked Jaquan Jackson at this point. So that's my tighten ups and tighten downs from week 1. Let me know your tighten ups and tighten downs from week 1. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Can't wait for the pads to come. It's going to get physical. I cannot wait. I'm going to be here to break it down with you guys after practice on Tuesday, after practice on Wednesday. We'll take the temperature of everything that's happened on Thursday's practice, maybe even a little mailbag. I don't know, not committing to anything yet. Got to stay free, no strings on me. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.